Okay, I'm Kristin Messerli, and I am so excited to be interviewing Lindsay Perez from the Financial Gym. I am personally a client and huge fan of the Financial Gym. Lindsay, you've been a trainer at the Financial Gym for how long?
Almost 2 years.
Okay, great. So yeah, really excited to have you. I want to talk a little bit about just financial advice during uncertain times, and as well as some home buying education. So to get started, I just want to, we're in a difficult time. This has been a crazy, crazy year so far. This is June right now when we're recording this. And would love your thoughts on any kind of advice that you're sharing with your clients on how to manage your finances during such uncertain times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in times of uncertainty, we really push for holding on to as much cash as possible. So rather than focusing on debt repayment, we want to focus on putting that money into savings. Certainly paying your debts is important, and I want to make sure that you're paying your bills on time, but conserving that cash is really key to flexibility. Because it allows you to plan for potentially losing a job or having a reduced income for an extended period of time. It really just helps you kind of pivot however you need to.
So with rates being really low right now, a lot of people are thinking about buying a home, and but it's also really uncertain times, like we're talking about. And I also feel like generally one of the things that I love the most about the Financial Gym is that you guys really emphasize lifestyle over, this is a milestone that you need to accomplish. And even though I produce a lot of home buying education and we're helping people through that process, I also don't think that it's for everyone at every, right when they hit 30, they're supposed to buy a home. That's not how it goes. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you talk to your clients about in terms of thinking about when is the right time to buy and how you should really prepare for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so it is a great time to buy because the rates are low, but the first thing I always want my clients to think about is, can you afford this? And if so, how much house can you really afford? It's important that if you're going to be buying a house, you already have an emergency fund, so 3 to 6 months of expenses in a savings account. Ideally, you've paid off any high interest consumer debt, so credit cards should be getting paid monthly. If you have any high interest personal loans, you don't need to be debt free to buy a house, but those high interest consumer items should be taken care of. So it's fine if you have student loans, but credit cards should definitely be at zero. And then what you want to think about is how much available cash you have. So ideally with a home purchase, you're putting down 20%. There are a lot of first-time homebuyer programs that allow you to put down less. But what you want to remember is even if you're allowed to put less money down up front, you're still financing the rest of that house price. So you want to make sure that you're buying a house that you can afford, that the monthly payment is going to be something reasonable. And one other thing that most people aren't aware of is what's called your debt to income ratio. So that's basically what mortgage companies use to decide how much house you can afford. They'll take your monthly debt payments. So whether it's credit cards, whether it's student loans, maybe you have a car loan, they're going to add all of that up. They're also going to factor in that new mortgage amount that you're looking at. And then they're going to compare that to your monthly gross income, so before tax income. That debt to income ratio number needs to be at 43% or less. Ideally, it's at 35% or less, but 43% is the maximum to actually get approved for that mortgage. And of course, the rates are great right now, but you can't take advantage of the best rates unless you have a good credit score.
And I think, really hitting on that monthly payment aspect of how much home you can afford is important, because I have looked at tons of mortgage calculators and how much house can you afford calculators, and sometimes I'm like, you think I can afford that? Like, why that I can afford that? Like, I don't want my monthly payment to be that. So even if your debt to income ratio is really good, you want to think about what works for you. And I know that's something that you guys really emphasize a lot.
Yeah, well, you mentioned lifestyle being important. I think that that's true, right? Just because you can afford a house, you want to think about the fact that that's going to be money you can't do anything else with. Remember that houses require repairs and upkeep, and all of that is maybe something you haven't been thinking about if you've been renting because there was a management company to call before, and that's not going to be the case. So I guess the other thing I would add is making sure that when you have the money for your down payment, whatever you're putting towards the house, that it's not every last dollar that you have available, because there might be something else that needs taken care of. So it's important to have some extra cash as a contingency fund when you're buying a house too.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I feel like I've checked a lot of boxes in my life and then later realized I didn't want to check that box anyway. So, but I do think that keeping in mind things like the extra repairs, that was something I did not think about when I bought my first home, and later was like, oh, there's just so much more upkeep than in an apartment or you're renting. But that said, if you want to buy a home, then you might as well be, paying some of that in principal and gaining, an investment in that. But I want to step back into a little bit more on some of the general financial advice that you guys talk about in the financial gym. And so are there any, models that you commonly share? I've heard talked about a pyramid, order operations pyramid. Maybe you could reference that and share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the order of operations pyramid is basically a way to figure out like in what order you should tackle your financial goals. So most people want to save, most people want to be debt free. They also want to invest. Maybe they want to buy a house. And it can be hard to kind of look at all of those factors and figure out where to start. So the order of operations pyramid sort of gives us an idea of what's most important and where to begin. So you can do one thing at a time and get on your financial journey without feeling overwhelmed and sort of feeling stuck. So first and foremost, at the top of the pyramid, we want to make sure that we have a cash emergency fund. So that's 3 to 6 months of expenses available for the unexpected, right? Losing your job, your car breaking down, having a family emergency. If you have a pet, those can be really fun surprise medical bills. Just anything that you can't plan for. And that's kind of the whole point there. And it can feel very not fun to save, but I want you to think about that as kind of your freedom fund or your flexibility fund, right? It's the option to walk away from a job that's making you miserable and give yourself the flexibility to find a new one, to take care of whatever unexpected bill arises, from something medical or anything else. Once you've gotten that all taken care of, the next thing you want to do is really tackle, like I said, that high interest consumer debt. So your credit card monthly, you shouldn't be carrying a balance. If you have any personal loan debt, you'll want to pay those down. Basically anything with an interest rate of 7% or higher, you want to get that paid off or refinanced. Once you've done that, then it's important to look at investing or wealth building, whether that's for, purposes of like just general investing, so maybe buying a house down the line, or even just building up your retirement funds. The best thing to do would be some combination of the two. And then once you're done with those, then we look at the more long-term, low-interest debt, things like student loans, mortgages. You can get ahead on those things, but you don't necessarily need to, and you shouldn't prioritize that over investing.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that I loved about working with my financial trainer at the financial gym has been that idea of being able to categorize the things that are important to me and spend my money in a way that reflects that, and so I was so overwhelmed about my finances coming into it. And, I just didn't want to look at it or think about it and hoped everything was going well, and so
Yeah.
so having that kind of accountability, but not it seems like everyone on all the trainers have this mentality of I'm teaming up with you and we're going to walk through, what is important to you. And so for me, travel is such a big deal to me. And so I have a little fund that is for my travel. And now I can feel comfortable instead of, just booking a trip and hoping that was a smart financial decision. Now I know, I set aside money for that. So I love process that you guys take.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that can be a big mindset shift in and of itself, like saving in advance for things rather than just doing them and figuring it out later. Especially when it comes to travel, it can be really hard to say no.
Yeah, yeah. So on a personal note, what brought you to the financial gym, and what made you decide to join this company?
So the way that I came to the gym is kind of a long story. I have a degree in journalism. I moved to New York after college for a job in media and TV news. I did that for a couple of years and then basically realized for a number of reasons that that wasn't for me. I wasn't sure what I was going to do instead because that was kind of all I had ever wanted to do. I was very focused on this one path. But at the same time, I was starting to pay attention to my personal finances. I graduated with about $40,000 of student loan debt. I moved to New York, a very expensive city, for a job in media, which wasn't paying super well. I had never really budgeted, so I was just kind of living and like figuring it out later, and hopefully I could pay my credit card at the end of the month, but sometimes I couldn't. I love to travel. That's actually like my sacred cow, as we say too, my non-negotiable. And so I was doing a lot of that's a good deal kind of shopping for that stuff. I would see this great flight deal and I would think, oh my God, $400 round trip to London, that's amazing. Which it is, but I didn't have the $400 and I wasn't thinking about how much it was going to cost to travel through London when I got there. And so I was just kind of doing all this stuff and starting to rack up debt and feeling stressed. And then I got a 401k and I was like, this is great. What is this? Like, I had just always been told you should get a job with a 401k, but I had no idea how it worked or what it meant or anything. So I started to educate myself. I was doing some reading. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. The more I read, the more clueless I felt. And I just got frustrated because I thought, I think I'm a smart person. At the very least, I know I'm a college educated person. And all I was trying to do was be a responsible adult. So I decided that I was going to try to learn by doing and see if I could get paid to figure out personal finance. Also, like, the best way to motivate me to do anything is to tell me that I can't do something. So I was like, well, I'm going to go straight to the top. So I got a job on Wall Street and I went to work for Merrill Lynch. On a wealth management team, which is a fancy way of saying we manage money for rich people. And it was awesome. I went from like not even really understanding what stock was to buying and selling it for other people. I learned a ton. I got my finances in order, paid off those credit cards and that student loan debt, saved some money, had an emergency fund, was actually paying for travel and saying no to trips I couldn't afford. And at the end of all that, I was like, well, this is great, but like, I want to help other people do what I just did. And so that's when I found the gym. And like I said, I've been training for about 2 years. So here we are.
So good. Such a good story. Like I said before, I think that there's just so many people, including myself, before I started working in financial education, before I got my finances in order. And as I was doing that, then I was like, man, the rest of the world doesn't know a lot of this. And we're just walking blindly through, getting a 401k because people said that was a good idea. And so I love what you guys are doing. For our audience, if you say you're a friend of Ardley or Cultural Outreach, you'll get a discount if you sign up for the financial gym. I know you guys have a lot of incentives going also right now during COVID-19 stuff. So, but I encourage everyone to check it out and follow the financial gym on social media. They have a really great Instagram that I love to follow and lots of good education out there. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for your time today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.